Well, Monarch Legacy of Monsters continues on with Birthright, which is where the children, the siblings here, discover that they feel that Shaw sees them as the rightful heirs to the work that he and Keiko and Billy started back in the 50s. And so that gives the motivation here somewhat of how Monarch uses them or agrees to, since they just, well, the sister becomes girl boss and demands it. uh, but I mean, you have to put it in the context of all the stuff they've been through. So at this point, she wants to know what this is all about. When before all of this, she had been a school teacher who lost everything in the Godzilla and Titan battle in San Francisco. So, all right. So they have their main nerd guy who agrees to go with them, and they figure out. And some of the elements of this show they did very well, and others where it's just sort of, oh wait, look, this one folder that tells the story of how their grandmother seemingly perished. I imagine we're going to find out other details of that. But that was already shown. Shaw tried to save her and couldn't, and now they're back at that point, at that place in Kazakhstan, and lo and behold, there is one of these portals that leads to the other world where all these monsters come from, and of course, I believe this is all taking place before the events of Godzilla versus King Kong. Of him, where you actually saw the other world. They went to it and everything. Hey, it's where Kong lived and all that. So, but here they're dealing with it, and it appears Shaw had been there before. And his plan is to shut off all the portals to keep the monsters out so they can't come across anymore. And he's aware that Godzilla is one of the good guys because he's guarding the portals to keep those monsters in place and not allow them to cross over into the earth. And of course, with the movies again, already figured that out. And King Kong's doing the same thing on Skull Island and all that. So the narrative overall fits, and I gotta admit, in a lot of ways, the Monarch series has been a better spinoff of the MonsterVerse movies than the Marvel TV shows have done with the MCU. So I'll give them that. There's been some stumbles here and there. I don't know if it totally derails it, but it's just some things just kind of snap together a little too cleanly here. And they're setting up Shaw that he's driven by what all happened and within Monarch and whatnot. And, of course, he was in love with Keiko. You had this love triangle going between him and Keiko. And then, of course, she was devoted to Bill. And we didn't really get a whole lot about them. We saw the romance blossom between her and Shaw. And then finally in this episode, you get that to where he's, deeply in love with her, defends her against the military, is, questioning her loyalties and everything, being Japanese and whatnot. And these are all people who were involved in the war and that kind of thing. But the overall soap opera elements of it was that it seems to be the obvious thing, and they even say it in the show that the kids thought, I thought we were going to find out that he was actually our grandpa the way he talked about grandma. And of course, yeah, that's what I thought. But apparently, spoiler, that is not the case. No, Randa was also not the father. It appears that Keiko, the father of Keiko's a child, must have died in the war, I guess, or something. They don't really say in the show. And her mother had been taking care of the child while she got set up over at Monarch and in the U.S. and everything. And that was the deal. And she just didn't know who she could really trust with her details. I didn't know, when to mention it. And she said, I came close to it a couple of times. But inadvertently, Bill finds out. And, and then he says, well, I'm going to help you out with that by claiming to be the father. So, apparently that's what unfolded. So they jump around, but obviously they jumped around from where she was taken down by those bugs and whatnot at Kazakhstan. And then, of course, there's a portal there. So I don't know if they're going to find old Keiko still living in the other world. But Shaw is determined to destroy the portal, and he sets charges. And at one point, he's, it's true, he's very, he cares about these kids. But then all of a sudden, he said, this is the thing to do, and he sets off the charges he says, hey, clear the area on the radio. Well, they didn't clear fast enough, so that everything's falling apart. May ends up being the first one to fall down the pit into the other world, which you knew that was going to happen. I guess you could throw in a monster appears out of the portal, and wasn't counting on that, but still, he didn't give them enough time to get out of there. May goes down. Kate's saying, oh, no, she went down, and then she starts to fall into it. Shaw reaches out to her, and it's a repeat of the scene between Shaw and Keiko. But this time, both of them go in. And as far as the brother goes, well, he's watching all of this, but I didn't really see where he had time to get out. So I assume he went in too. I don't know. It doesn't really specify that. But no surprise, they were going to go into the Hollow Earth world where all the monsters live. And so that's where it ends off there. Meanwhile, the flashbacks to the 50s, not just the revelation of Keiko's son, but also what Shaw eventually decided to reveal to the military, that Godzilla's still alive. And he does that right at the last minute because they're getting ready to cut their funding and everything, saying that this is all a bunch of nonsense. Even though they did see Godzilla when they detonated the atomic bomb on him. But he said, no, saw him again. He's fine. And so that's what sets off the thing. And he probably regrets it because Keiko was nervous about them knowing about it. And she didn't. She just, I had a feeling they shouldn't kill Godzilla, But nevertheless, that's the situation, and there's a huge burden of guilt, it appears to be, on Shaw, and I imagine that'll be a tale unfolding in the past era. So they've had some stumbles here and some bumps. It could have done better, but overall, this wasn't that great of an episode, but still, I'm in it to see how they close out the season, whether the show can salvage and perform better overall. Well, of course, don't really know. But anyway, it's no reacher as far as on par of excellence. It's kind of disappointing because it started off so cool and intriguing, but not ready to abandon it just yet. So there you have, there's only, I guess 3 episodes left in this season for Monarch, and we'll see how that turns out.